Hello and welcome to Norwich Talk for another loan roundup. It's been about 5 weeks since the last one we did, and it's safe to say it hasn't really been a good period for Norwich City's loan exports. There's been a couple of issues with injury and not being able to get into the team, so we'll cover everything that you need to know about all of Norwich City's loanees and how they're getting on. We'll start on a more positive note with Sam Mccallum, who's been getting on really well at Coventry. He's played every game that he's been eligible for since that last loan roundup. Obviously he missed the game against Norwich because he can't play against his parent club, but apart from that he started every game, contributed to a really significant 2-0 win over Brentford, which was actually pretty big in Norwich City's season. Obviously he's been playing actually as a left wing back, as part of a back sort of five, or you could say in the midfield, depending on how you want to look at it, but he's been playing as a left wing back. I know he started the season playing a lot at right wing back, so it's good to see he's on his natural side where he's probably more likely to be playing for Norwich. I suppose the positives you could take out of him playing that role is that he's learning to play different styles, and that's improving the different aspects of his game. But obviously it will be a back four at Norwich, and you don't see Daniel Farke changing that anytime soon, especially in the Premier League. So I suppose it's discouraging in that you'd want him to be playing where he would be under Farke, but you know, all the experience is good. Another player that's been going well for is Archie Mayor. I say that in terms of his appearances. Kings Lynn have been involved in some entertaining affairs recently, shall we say, which probably isn't the ideal situation for a goalkeeper, but he's been playing really well from what I've heard, and obviously there's not so many stats out there for how he's been performing in the National League, but Kings Lynn fans seem to be really happy with him, and as I mentioned in the last one, he's obviously got that Player of the Month award this season. He hasn't won another one since then, but that just shows how important he's been for them, and obviously Kings Lynn can't be relegated now, so it's only going to be positive for them going forward. So yeah, looking good for Archie Mayor. Moving on to Dan Adshead, who's had a bit more of a mixed time at Telstar. He's been in and out of the team. He started 3 of the 5 since the last roundup, and he's come off as a sub in all 3. He's got 1 assist, but it has been a difficult period for Telstar. The results haven't been great recently. I wonder if that's got much to do with Sebastian Soto, who's obviously returned to Norwich from the Dutch club and been playing for the under-23s. He hasn't overwhelmed me for the under-23s. He's shown some real signs of promise, and definitely shown some bits to get you excited, but not necessarily enough to suggest that he's first team ready now, Soto, but he definitely was a real asset to that Telstar team, and I think they are probably suffering from him leaving the club. But Dan Adshead is doing okay. You know, you'd hope he's now getting to the sort of progression level where you'd hope he's going to be coming back and fighting for a first team place sooner rather than later. But you know, we'll see on that, and you know, it's sometimes bad experiences are good to learn from, and hopefully that's what it will be for him at Telstar, given how they've been doing recently. Moving on to Akin Famwo, whose fortunes have really improved in the recent few weeks. I obviously said in the last roundup that he was struggling with injury. He's now come back and been playing matches. I think injury kept him out of the last game, but as far as I'm aware, that's not really a serious concern. They kept consecutive clean sheets in 2 games that he started. I think he started 3 or 4 since coming back from injury, and Lee Bowyer was quite keen to throw him back in after quite a long period out, and that shows how impressed he was with him earlier in the season and how important he is to them. So, you know, Famwo's 23 now. He's getting to the age where you want to see him challenging for first team appearances, and I think he may well do that. I'm not sure if he'll go out on loan next season, and these last few weeks have been encouraging as far as Akin Famwo. Moving on to Tom Tribal, obviously a more established player in the Norwich loan export ranks, and one that probably isn't going to be coming back, but we'll cover him just in case. And something I think quite a lot of Norwich fans were really pleased with was his performance against Swansea. He got Who Scored Man of the Match in that game, and he's been putting together a string of really good performances, and and really showing up for them. I saw Bradley Johnson recently went on the TNC podcast and said that he's been impressed with Treble, who he didn't cross paths with as a Norwich player, so this is his first experience, and what he feels is that he is a talented and good player, but the injuries have just sort of stifled him so far at Ewood Park. But it's good to know that from a player that's highly regarded, especially in that midfield role, that he thinks Tom Tribal is getting on well. Even if he doesn't come back to the club, I'm sure we'll want him to succeed in his career going forward. So that's really encouraging. Moving on to Rocky Bashiri, who again it hasn't really worked out for. I told you in the last roundup that he's now gone back to Eupen, but he's only played one game for them since returning there, so it's not looking great. There was really high hopes for him when he signed and in subsequent years, but the loan system, which I think sort of the higher ups at Norwich use quite a lot to gauge how a player is getting on in their development, that stage of Bashiri's development really hasn't gone well at all since he arrived at Carrow Road. So maybe a little bit worrying there. Hopefully, you hope that it will come good, but there's not really too many signs that it will. He's a talented player, clearly, from how he performed before he arrived at Norwich, and the fact that they signed him, and the fact that he's played at a high level for such a young age. So hopefully, I don't know what it is that's disrupting him. Maybe he just needs a run of games after not playing properly for quite a long while. So hopefully once he gets that, we'll see some improvement, but we're yet to see that as of yet since his new loan move. Daniel Cenani is a player who's also struggled. He's only played 23 minutes since the last round-up. He was quite a key player for them earlier on in the season, but he hasn't registered any goals or assists, and his role in the squad has really decreased, which is worrying. I think on the evidence of this season, I'm not quite sure Cenani is really ready to contribute to Norwich City, which is worrying given his age and the fact that there was quite high hopes held for him when we signed him. Obviously it was a gamble and it won't cost the club too much money, so if it doesn't quite work out, not too much will be lost, but we were all hoping that Cenani was going to be sort of this wild card and a really clever pickup in the summer, almost like a Pookie or something like that, a classic Stuart Webber signing, but it hasn't really panned out to be that way, and his loan move at the moment and how that's gone over the last 5 weeks is quite worrying. Philip Heisser is a player who's been doing quite well. He's mentioned in interviews recently though that he is ready to return to Germany. I think we all know that he won't be playing for Norwich again. He's played that one game against Crawley when we lost to a League 2 side in the Cup. But he's been doing really well for Karlsruhe in the Zweite Bundesliga, so yeah, pleased for him. Obviously, you never really like to see your club almost ruin the career of a player. I don't want to say ruin because it's only been a couple of years, and he was a well-esteemed player on sort of lower level German clubs, and this is probably where he's going to end up having left Norwich. Obviously, it'll be frustrating for him that he's had this chunk of his career removed, but I saw an interview with him recently where he said his experience at Norwich was really good, that the facilities were fantastic, that Norwich had some facilities that only Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund would have in Germany, which, especially given the development of German football recently, is really encouraging. So it looks like Heisser will be returning to Germany pretty soon, and that there might be a few clubs on that sort of level that will be keen to take him. Louis Thompson has continued to struggle with injuries, only made one matchday squad since the last round-up. Obviously things are going well for MK Dons, as I'm sure we're all happy to see, with how Russell Martin has taken over there and the amount of ex-Norwich players he's brought in, Cameron Jerome, Andrew Sermon among others, and it's really exciting what's going on there. Unfortunately, Louis Thompson isn't really as much of a part of it as he'd like to be. The injuries continue to hamper him, and I haven't seen too much of him play, but he's looked like a promising player when I've seen him, and you just hope that he can kick on from that eventually. You don't want to see any player struggle with injuries, especially one that's played for Norwich. But Tyrese Omotoye is another player who's maybe struggled, but I think it's more, you can put this more in the bracket of positive experience. He's made 5 appearances, 1 start, but that 1 start was since the last roundup, I believe. So it's most of it is coming off the bench. He's yet to score, but still that sort of experience and being around that first team environment and having that accountability and that responsibility at League One, quite a high level, obviously only one division below, is still quite an important experience for me, and I feel that will be good for him in the long run. A striker who really hasn't seen things go his way recently is Josip Dudamich, whose form for Norwich has seemed to continue into his time at Rijeka. He missed a penalty recently, and he's really struggling to get into the first team, which is the starting 11, I should say, which is something I wouldn't have expected, knowing he was going to the Croatian First Division, or the top division. So he's really struggled there. I know people felt that this was sort of, or he felt that this could be a sort of restart in his career, but I wonder if maybe he'll just have to reassess his options come the summer and hopefully get a permanent move. And with a full pre-season after the amount of injuries he's had, I think that's what he needs. We all know that he won't be playing for Norwich again, especially given we started Marco Stiepermann up front rather than get him back in the squad. So, I feel for him, but looks like it wasn't all Norwich in terms of his struggles over the last few years, and that's continued at Rijeka. We'll round it off with Tim Closer, who it is going really well for. There seemed to be a resignation when he left on loan that he was almost leaving permanently, which was a shame, obviously, given how much he's served the club. But injuries and form have sort of hampered him in the last couple of years. But he's been doing really well for Basel. He started almost every game, but I don't think they've not won in 6. So they've dropped out of the title race that they were part of. They're now third, and I can't remember who it is that's top of the table, but they're running away with it, really. So not looking good for Closer and Van Wolfswinkel in terms of their teams, but in terms of the run of games that Tim Closer has got, and I think how he's been playing, from what I've heard, that's all really encouraging. So good to round it off on a good note in what's not really been a great period for Norwich City's loan exports. Make of that what you will. I think the condensed schedule as a result of COVID is difficult on players, and when you suffer injuries you miss more games than you normally would, which is a blow especially to these players trying to get some first team experience. But overall the club will chalk it all down to sort of growing experiences for the younger players. There's a fair few that they don't see returning to the club, so there's a few that they won't be too worried about. They'll just be happy to get them off a wage bill. But I think we can agree it's not been an overwhelmingly good month for Norwich City's loan exports. So hopefully they can their times out on loan can improve soon. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.